Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Okay, Connected Life peeps. It is
Wait, have we already
Cyber
started?
Monday.
Oh, we have started.
Oh, yeah, it did start.
I love that you don't give me a heads up.
Nope.
I'm just scrolling over here.
Yeah, you are. So it is Cyber Monday. Pretty excited about that. You can go to JustinAbby, that's abi.com, and get $100 off on Living Fully Alive if you put in Great Friday 2023. And that ends today.
It's our most popular course, and we have so much feedback about it changing people's lives, their friend groups, their ability to process through life. We have a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah.
We've heard about it.
Yeah.
If people want to watch, we have a testimony video they can watch.
Yeah, it's on that page. You can scroll down and watch it.
Ooh.
So it is, we just had Thanksgiving. That was really great.
Isn't it fun that we have a Black Friday deal?
Mm-hmm.
I just think, I never thought I'd be somebody who could offer a Black Friday deal.
No, it's not a Black Friday deal. It's a Great Friday deal.
A great Friday, a great Cyber Monday deal.
But with that said, we just did Thanksgiving, and
Literally a minute ago, we got done with the Thanksgiving meal.
yeah, literally. Yeah. And I showed my balls on the internet. I have these big balls that we put on our tree every year, and they're these big golden balls. And it was fun because we decorated the Christmas tree, and we got to share that with the world. And it seemed that a lot of people happened to enjoy that.
A lot of people happened to enjoy that. It is funny. You should check out our social media pages.
Our Instagram. You know, we don't really build out social media too much.
We don't.
That's going to change this year. Our goal, we're going to work on building out some videos.
Yeah. But you guys should follow us.
Yeah, Justin Stumball and Abby Stumball on Instagram.
Join our email list. Just be a part of the fam.
Yeah.
We didn't actually record this right after Thanksgiving. I was making a joke, but then you just went with it. So it sounded like this.
Well,
no, it was yesterday.
Yeah, Thanksgiving was yesterday.
Yes.
But it was a really good time. We had an enjoyable time just hanging out with parents and some good friends. Yeah. It was a hoot.
Justin tried to follow this recipe that I was very excited about for turkey.
Oh, yeah.
Best turkey I've ever had was this recipe, but every one of my friends who's tried to follow it has failed miserably.
I didn't fail miserably.
Our oven failed miserably.
And it wasn't miserable. It was still a reasonable turkey.
Yeah, the turkey tasted great.
But it didn't have the juiciness that it's supposed to. But it's because our oven wouldn't go to a low enough setting.
I didn't know that was a thing.
And I was up all night long. Yeah.
I know. One of my other friends said her oven doesn't go below 220 either.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, it's quirky. I didn't know you had to look for an oven that could go low.
No, I'm going to go have a conversation with somebody who sold me that thing. Give me an oven that works.
Yeah, you stayed up all night. And then the funny thing is our turkey was done at 9 a.m. on Thanksgiving.
So we had dinner at 1.
It was so funny because never ever has the turkey been done early.
It actually worked out really well because then we had the afternoon to hang out and then whatever.
Oh, I freaking loved it.
Yeah, it was great.
You don't have to wait all day.
No, you don't.
You just get to eat and then lay.
And then comatose it. But so that was fun times. And we're really excited to have this. This conversation, I think, is a really vital one for everyone that's listening because none of us are immune to the experiences that we have during the holiday season. Just coming off of Thanksgiving, there's probably going to be a lot of you out there that are like, oh my God, here's the few moments that really riled me up. Here's ways that I didn't show up really well. Here's people that I now hate and have put on my naughty list forever. But Christmas is around the corner too. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to help foster a heart of compassion and understanding for ourselves and other people around this season. And I think that, again, this is a really vital conversation we're going to have today, because I think it's going to help a lot of you see yourself through a different lens and see other people through another lens, and be able to show up in a way that actually is really, really kind at the end of the day, and really caring.
One of the first things I think that's so important in how you view humanity is that everyone makes sense, including yourself. You make sense, and the people around you make sense. And that,
I don't know, all I can hear is a phrase, what the hell are you doing? Because I think that that's a phrase that a lot of people have inside of their head. What the hell are you doing? You do not make sense. But Abby's going to elaborate on what it means to make sense, because I think that this is vital in the journey of actually having compassion.
Yeah. Well, so often now, me and Justin both, and actually I've realized, I think this is one of the most common triggers that people have, and they don't realize it. It took me years before I understood that this was an emotion and a reaction that I had, which is confusion. Confusion is an emotion, and typically,
which I think most people do not identify that as an emotion.
Yeah. I'm saying I didn't for years.
Yeah. No, people are like, that's an emotion, confusion, but confusion totally is an emotion.
And it would have been so helpful for me if I could have known that that was an emotion early on, because in our marriage is a great example.
Yeah.
There you would do things.
Do I hear a bus you're going to throw yourself under? This is awesome. Go for it.
Yeah. So in our marriage, when we first got married, for years, I don't want to say just when we first got married, but until I understood the emotion of confusion, you would do things that made absolutely no sense to me. And I would be wildly confused. I'd be like, this does not feel logical. And so I remember asking you questions like, why would you do that? And I wasn't actually trying to be a condescending bitch. I just literally could not fathom in my brain what was happening from my logic standpoint and your logic standpoint. Like, it felt like this makes no sense.
How are we coming to this conclusion, Justin?
Because I didn't have the filtering system that everyone makes sense back then. I had the filtering system that I made sense, and a lot of people were crazy. Because I grew up in a scenario where my mom made less sense than me. I was much more logical than both my parents. And the reason that can be is just how triggers work differently. So when I trigger, I can often go into thinking more clear and lawyering and coming up with specifics. When some people trigger, their brain kind of shuts off. And so some people do feel like they're more logical than the people around them. That's how I felt growing up.
Right.
Like my parents did a lot of triggered behavior. Now I can look
like
back.
These people, it was kind of like the idea of these people are idiots and they don't have any, they're not logical. Kind of like that.
Well, I mean, I don't remember thinking my parents are idiots.
I'm not saying that. I'm talking about people in general. Yeah.
The feeling was, I know better than you guys, clearly.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember with their finances, the way they'd spend money, and I'd be like, I know where our finances are at. This is not logical what you are doing. So there can be this judgment seat that we sit on where we feel better than other people because what we deem is right and good in the world, they are not following. And you had a million places like this as when we first got married.
Oh,
like
I thought the world was literally made up of idiots. I'm not going to act like I didn't. I thought everyone was an idiot. And I was like, what you're doing has no logic or reasoning to it. You are a stupid human being.
Yeah. No. And I think that a lot of people.
And it was, how could you get to this place? Go ahead.
Yes, it is so easy to have a belief that your logic is the good logic and other people around you are not as logical. That's what I felt. So the change in my worldview came when I realized that everyone makes sense. And if I don't understand how they make sense, it's because I'm not looking at all the pieces.
Yeah.
I don't understand their pieces that they're looking through. And part of that, honestly, is the more I understood trauma and triggers. That's why we taught the pathway to freedom, because the more you understand how your brain when you're triggered actually narrows in on certain information and throws out a ton of information. Like your confirmation bias gets really, really loud and all other information gets really, really silent. So when people are triggered, they may be less logical. But so when I say everybody makes sense, when you say or do something that doesn't feel logical to me, I think based on what is going on in his brain, his past experiences, what's happening in his body, the way he's filtering things, this actually makes a ton of sense to him.
Yes.
And if I can understand all of those pieces, what protective mechanisms he's having going off, what the way he's seen this situation through, if I understand all that, then what he's doing will make sense.
Yeah. So what she's talking about is this idea of humanizing each individual. And the only way that we can really humanize people is if we can connect to their story. Like our story is what makes us human. Our story is what makes us make sense as a human. Because when we get into the depth of our story, not only what we participated in, but what happened to us, then we can get into how we respond or react to that story, how we choose to survive, the things that we build in to survive, like she's saying. And again,
our protectors.
Our protectors. And then all of a sudden, it's not just, hey, this person made a stupid decision. It's like, I have this one person in my world that they constantly make the worst decisions ever. It is 100% the worst decisions, the most
100%
destructive, constant decisions. And they have had enough dialogue with us in our world to understand.
To logically understand. This is a terrible decision that I'm about to engage in. In fact, they will walk into something and be saying this is a terrible
I know
decision.
This is the worst decision I could ever make. I'm diving headfirst into a pool that's 1 foot deep.
Yes.
And yet, so if you're on the outside of them,
it's maddening.
Yeah, it's maddening. And especially if you don't have any context for their story, you're just like, that person's an idiot. Why are they doing this? In
fact, you had said things like that at certain points before you understood the story.
Absolutely. But because it was so outrageous, the decision making that was happening. And it was clearly A plus B is going to equal C. There's not even a secret option that's going to come up from this. It will be C.
Totally.
But then you dug into the depth of their story and it was so traumatizing and shattering. And then all of a sudden you put it all together and you go, oh, the fact that you're even a functioning human being at all is a miracle. And then all of a sudden what overtakes is empathy and compassion.
And you start to realize that there's brain logic and then there's body logic.
Yeah.
And our bodies respond to trauma that hasn't been dealt with in a way that is very different than our brains do. So she might logically know I shouldn't make this decision, but her body might still be reacting with strong protectors that aren't logical. Oftentimes our protectors end up keeping us in pain cycles after we're out of the pain. And so if we don't learn what's going on inside of us, what's happening in our body, why we're being drawn, like I would say they are constantly drawn to trauma to repeat.
Right.
And so the decisions look crazy to us, but there's actually like this magnetic pull that they haven't learned to choose out of yet.
Right.
Of going head deep right back into the trauma that they've come from.
Yeah. And keeping it at a consistent place.
Yeah. Like on some level, when you start to recognize human nature and you're like, people stay in the amount of chaos that they're used to. So you look at that and you're like, her life makes sense.
Yeah.
When you look at the chaos she constantly chooses, you're also aware of that makes so much sense.
Totally.
To her story. They experienced pain on such a deep level. And now you see they are continuing to keep pain in that level.
Yeah. And so what starts to happen is that judgment begins to dwindle away inside of us. So we can have people that come into our world and they make really messy decisions, not just externally, but messy decisions that are reactive towards us. That doesn't feel so fun. And they blow up Thanksgiving meals or they blow up like holiday season stuff or whatever. And they just have total meltdowns. Or they've done so many messes in the past, you're just on edge, not wanting to have to be around them and all their craziness. But something, again, when we're able to like see a story or understand a story, even if it's like seeking to understand someone's story, even if they've brought pain into your world and stuff like that, all of a sudden can bring our walls down, especially when we get into the topic of being a powerful person ourselves. And we'll probably get in that a little later in this conversation. But once we can do that, our offenses can leave. Again, our judgment comes down, and then we see a little kid across from us, and we go, oh, there's a little kid in there that's in survival.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what this is.
Well, and one of the things, the more connected to myself I am, the more aware I am of my own responses, my places where I want to protect myself, my places where I do something that probably looks crazy to someone else because they don't understand fully my story either.
Yeah.
They don't understand what I'm trying to protect myself from or why I have that wall there, or what is going on inside of me. So part of the compassion story is learning to have the same feeling towards yourself.
Yeah.
After you have like a crazy reaction to somebody saying pass the turkey and you're like, I will not pass the turkey. And you're like, what the F is wrong with me? And this is one of the best ways to beat the inner critic, which so many people have. So many people struggle with that voice that is like, you're so effed up. What is wrong with you? Why can't you figure this out already? You know better. How come you haven't done this better? And the one of the ways to beat that critical voice is to actively go to, no, my behavior makes sense. I need to figure out what is going on in my story. What is going on in my heart? What is going on in my protectors so that I can disarm that and grow into it, which that's what living fully alive is all about, is reconciling your relationship with yourself so that you can step into living from a better place.
What Abby's talking about is something that I'm coining right now. It may exist in the world, but it's mutually shared compassion is what I would term it.
Ooh, I like that. You want to go?
What's that?
You want to go to the bathroom real quick and screw around?
Why the bathroom?
I don't know. Honestly, I couldn't come up with
Sounds
anything.
like a dirty place to go. So you got turned on and want to go to the bathroom?
No, I don't know. It was a bad joke. Well, all I could think of is, do you want to go to the bathroom in F? And I was like, I don't want to be that crass on the thing. And then I don't even know why the bathroom is the place. I didn't know where to go.
Just another room close by.
Let's wipe everything off the podcast table.
The podcast table.
Podcast.
You know what, Abby? You make sense to me. But I think mutually shared compassion would be a good way to put it. And that when we can live a lifestyle of mutually shared compassion, that's where we create a lot of balance.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you only have compassion for the people around you and you have endless compassion for them, but you beat the crap out of yourself, it's actually not compassion for the people around you. It ends up getting very unbalanced. And if you only
codependency.
And if you only have compassion for yourself and you don't have it for others, very
selfish and narcissistic.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think, though, I've met anyone who's compassionate towards themselves. I think that when you
genuinely get compassion towards yourself, you will genuinely overflow with other people.
Yes, I agree.
I believe that too. So, with that said, one of the things that we're kind of talking about today is the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde effect. So the idea is that there's this Dr. Jekyll who is this part of us that is very normal,
likable, normal.
Yeah, for whatever. We're in our own personal environment. And a lot of times what happens is that we have this persona or way of being that the way that we show up to life, I guess is the way to say it, that for us is our normal.
Yeah.
And we feel comfortable, we show up as Dr. Jekyll. We turn into Mr. Hyde when we get into circumstances that all of a sudden begin triggering us, triggering pieces of our stories, things that feel really scary to us. Now that happens a lot around family.
Yeah.
And around holiday seasons.
I'd love to say this. A lot of people are really normal to the world, but the people they're closest to, they get the craziest with. And that I used to be mad about that. That felt sad. But what I've learned is it's attachment style stuff. The people that are your closest attachments are the people you're going to have the most fear, the most panic, and the most self-protection, because you're terrified of that love leaving. Yeah. Or the people in your family, they may not be your primary attachments, but they are the people that are closer to your internal worlds than a lot of other people. Even if you're not close with them, you've known them for the longest time.
Yeah. So I'll have a lot of clients that have come into my office where they're like, oh my gosh, like I'm a powerful executive or a business leader, or I'm a teacher who shows up very competent in the field of teaching that I do, professor, like all kinds of backgrounds, right? And they're comfortable in their own skin and they feel like they're very capable inside of their own world. And then all of a sudden they show up for a family meal with their extended family, right? And
they are right back to being the little kid.
Back to acting in ways like, dude, I haven't freaked out and screamed at a meal in years, but for the first time I went back to be around my family and my stepmother was there and she just drove me nuts. And all of a sudden there I was, you know, a 13-year-old again when she came into the house, and then I would start freaking out and you lose yourself, and all of a sudden controlling. You become controlling or dominant or elusive and
passive.
Disconnective and avoidant. And
I often dissociate.
It's like your body gets hijacked. So all of a sudden you get hijacked.
Yeah, because they're the people you have the deepest childhood triggers with. So your little kid that was triggered around them shows up and kind of commandeers your ship, your logic.
Yeah. So Mr. Hyde takes over and you kind of like go through the storm of an experience. And again, that could be a party at the holidays, a dinner, a hangout with a certain group of people that remind you of something, but all of a sudden Mr. Hyde comes out and you walk away feeling a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of like bad emotions. Like, I never want to do another dinner with those people again. Why? Because I all of a sudden got hijacked and I wasn't myself. And that felt horrible to not be myself all of a sudden. That felt like something's happening to me. I couldn't happen to the circumstance. And so really what ends up happening is we just draw these like hard lines and we go, I will never participate in that space ever again because Mr. Hyde comes out.
Dr. Jekyll.
No, Mr. Hyde.
I thought Mr. Hyde was the good. Oh, Dr. Jekyll's the good one. This is called Dyslexic Stories with Abi.
Dr. Jekyll was actually
I read the book.
Yeah, a well-respected, intelligent scientist.
Yeah. So the interesting
who dabbles in the darker side of science.
Oh,
and then out comes Mr. Hyde.
Well, and this is the thing that's helpful to understand about triggering, right? Is that you can logically be fine with what's happening. You can be at the table and you can be like, oh, they're passing me by again. Everybody's treating me like I'm the little kid. Yeah. Nobody's respecting me. And you can be like, it's fine. But then all of a sudden your emotions can be like, I will have those mashed potatoes right now. You know, like whatever it is. Because trigger brain is beyond just logic.
Yeah.
And your emotions. And there are times when you're triggered where your logic can keep you in bounds. I like those triggers. Those are nice. Those are like bumper triggers where, you know, like the bumper lanes at bowling, when they come down, they keep the ball inside this. So like I can have triggers go off and my logic can keep my triggers in line, you know, like I can be feeling feelings and I can be like, heart, you're okay. Da, 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 da. A lot of times that works where I have logic that can be like, you're okay. You're not in your childhood anymore. You're a powerful adult. You can have a voice. You can ask for those mashed potatoes. You can, you know, but then there's other times when you have triggers, deeper triggers or triggers with harsher protectors where it doesn't feel like you logically were aware of what was happening and something just came up. And the cool thing is you get to learn as you grow. You can learn. You can learn how to have awareness. You can learn how to know your feelings. You can learn how to recognize what's happening before it's happening. I had a lot of feelings come up this Thanksgiving, like a surprising amount.
Yeah, you did.
But I did really good at not bumping into you with them.
It was good because I knew you were going into meltdown city internally. That was unquestionable. I can all of a sudden feel this like
cloud
that begins to emit out of you, and it's like growing bigger and bigger. And I'm like, gee willikers, I better step carefully. But I could tell that was happening. But again, like you said, one of the things you did really well.
I was able to name it. I was able to talk about what it was. I was able to cry about what it was and then not have it destroy the day.
And that's one of the things that unfortunately happens with a lot of us is when this cloud, this is not an uncommon thing. This is a universal thing depending on circumstances. But this emotion takes over when pain comes up and this cloud begins to form. And a lot of times we end up taking it out on the environment around us. All of a sudden, we're just annoyed at everyone. We might not even know we're in a cloud. We're just like, everybody in this house is annoying me right now. Oh, you're having big emotions. Something's coming up inside of you.
Yep.
And everyone suddenly became an idiot.
Yeah. If people don't know how to recognize their triggers, people don't understand that is how their brain is telling them they're in pain.
And they'll have logic reasons. So you'll be like, and then grandpa just slurps up his gravy when he's eating potatoes. It's disgusting. Ew, stop. Or whatever it is, or it was the food wasn't cooked well enough, or they're always late. And then you're just going off at how someone's always late and all the things that are happening. And again, you'll have logical understanding for why the world outside of you is so terrible.
Yeah, your brain will always fill in details to make some story for your emotions.
In order for you to make sense to yourself. Because you're wanting to get back to making sense to yourself, because that's where you get to stability. So
alignment, stability.
You don't feel crazy. When you feel crazy, your brain's like, I don't want to feel crazy anymore. What's happening? Okay, these people are doing this. Okay, I can settle.
Yeah. So oftentimes we look at the outside circumstances and make up a story about why those are the things that are making us irked.
Yeah.
When reality is our little kid is up, like something subconscious is going on that is much deeper.
So one of the questions we have to ask ourselves coming off of Thanksgiving and then going into
Christmas
is, did I start having any stories where people became villains?
Yeah.
So did I start a process of vilifying scenarios and situations, irritations, people or problems, and like being able to write those out and identify those? Oh yeah, I did. When did that happen? When did that start coming up for me? Oh, it happened when this person came over into the environment, or when this circumstance started taking place. Why? What was that actually provoking inside of me? And one of the things that happens is that we're very adverse to taking ownership and being like, this begins with me. We want it to begin with other people. And it's a surefire way to keep disconnection built, to build barriers, to destroy any sense of bridges. But we begin the bridge building process when we begin to take ownership for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, this is starting with me.
Yeah. What's going on inside of me?
That doesn't mean that someone's not acting crazy at the dinner, but my intensity. What is my intensity? What is the build? What is the accusation? Where is that coming from?
And intensity doesn't mean like you're yelling at everybody on the thing. It could be like, I have a lot of anxiety building, or I need to be busy. I need to clean the whole kitchen, and some of those things are good. Like I found myself, I liked putting up the tree because it gave me something to do. So I was less triggered about things. Yeah. So those can be good things, but the awareness of what is going on inside of me.
I'm never against external solutions.
Yep.
As a balanced part of the process.
Exactly.
What I am against is living in the idea that the externals are the things that need to change so that I can feel better. So understanding that if at the core of myself, I know I am my own problem, and I know that I need to be able to get to my own place of peace regardless of my external circumstances. And in the process, I can healthfully adjust certain externals that can make my life a little bit better as I'm trying to navigate it. Maybe I don't know how to fully work through what's going on inside of myself right now. So maybe I do need to put up a tree. Maybe I do need to put together a puzzle with some kids over here or something like that.
Or clean the whole kitchen.
And that's okay. But if it's a lifestyle of these alternative behaviors, you're still not solving the root issue. And that root issue, once it's solved, you can be present in all future scenarios. So that's something that you want to move towards in your process of healing and restoration.
Yeah. And the beginning basis of all of this is self-awareness.
Yeah. People are so minimally self-aware.
Like
And
they're
that's
not
not-
aware
you're not
that they're
bad
having,
for
they
it.
don't
You
even know
just-
they're having feelings.
I used to have this, like you'd be like, hey, is something going on in you? I'm like,
No.
no, I'm good.
Gruff as hell for 3 weeks. Short answers, snippy, Mr. McSnipperson. 3 weeks later, he's like, I think I'm having some feelings.
Abby, I make sense.
Yeah, you made sense for your story. It wasn't fun, but you make sense.
Also, when we talk about the idea that people make sense and having compassion for them, it
That doesn't mean
that they have permission to get away with murder
Yeah.
inside of our space. And it doesn't mean that we have to live a lifestyle where we don't create some semblance of boundaries or some semblance of confrontation or communication around things. It just means that we can weather a lot of storms a lot better when we can see people's humanity and we can invoke a lot more kindness.
And even in confronting, it's so much easier to confront somebody if you see them and understand them and have empathy for them.
Yeah,
and then ask for like, hey, I get how it could be really anxious for you holidays because there's so much to do. And I know you've lived with performance your whole life and it feels like you have to be perfect here in order for everyone to be happy. And I can understand why you get militant about that. However, I really need there to be some grace and some times where there's, we're helpful, but things don't have to be perfect so that we can enjoy it as well. Is there a way that I could help you feel reassured or safe that you're going to be loved, even if things aren't all perfect?
Yeah. So you can have like actually proactively powerful conversations like that. And again, it's done with compassion and understanding and care and also value for oneself. Cause it's like, hey, let's make some adjustments if possible.
Yeah.
And I see you.
Yeah.
And I'd like to be closer to you in this process. And so what we want is for people to be able to walk away from these situations and be able to begin the process of asking, how did I get there? So you just got off Thanksgiving break and maybe you walked away from something where you're like, oh dude, I became Mr. Hyde. It was a radical mess what I did. And you may be feeling shame and guilt or condemnation or something along those lines. And it's like, okay, I probably make sense. I should probably dive into my story and figure out how. And I can also come with repair in this process. So if I did show up poorly, I don't have to come to the table with shame. I can actually circle back and be like, hey guys, I know at Thanksgiving, I, launched into grandma and said, pass the potatoes, asshole. And she was very shocked. So was everyone else at the table. And I would like to apologize for calling grandma an asshole. And with that said, I have some pain inside of myself and I've made a mess because of my pain that I'm not aware of. And I would like to figure out how to clean that up really well and acknowledge my mess and do better in the future moving forward.
This is one of the things where I'm like, I wish everyone could just adopt this belief that we have that we're messy. Like the more you have accepted that you're messy as a human and that you're going to do messy things and that you're going to protect yourself and you're going to react and you're going to have moments that are messy and you're not going to always be able to be perfect. The more you accept that, the easier it is to apologize for it. Because you're like, no, I've already accepted that this is part of being a human. Like I don't know any humans that aren't messy.
No.
I don't know any humans that don't have moments when their anxiety gets the best of them.
And if you're
or
that
their
person
fear gets
listening
the best
right
of them.
now that says, actually, I've got it pretty much all together. You're the person that has denial. Okay. And I'm just going to call it out. You need to think about, okay, since I said that and Justin's calling me out, I guess I have denial because it's not possible that I'm not messy.
Yeah. I mean, some messy looks nicer. Like sometimes control looks like a nice, or codependency
absolutely.
Looks really nice. You're like,
Control,
I serve
like,
everyone.
I have the perfect home and then the perfect meal
Everything's
happen.
clean. I have everything on time. I have everyone of my kids looks perfect.
And everyone on the other side of you is dying because they can't make messes. They can't be human in any way, shape, or form. They can't screw up or they get kicked out of the situation or they get scolded or chastised or punished. And it's like, oh, you're not fun.
Or like Mr. McJudgyson, like the person who like has a very harsh inner critic with them and then has there's mechanisms that, or performers. I think a lot of times like people who are workaholics and who are the best at their job and who get all of the promotions and all of the raises, like that looks like a pretty coping mechanism. They just work harder. They just try harder. They just do more. And they're like constantly accomplishing so much. But it's messy. It's messy in how they treat themselves. It's messy in how they treat others.
People get ran over. People get dismissed in those scenarios.
They themselves do. So the point is, there is nobody immune to the messiness of life. Because why? Because every human is going through painful circumstances. Everybody's been abandoned or rejected. Everybody wants to belong. Everybody wants to feel fulfilled. Everybody has dreams and desires that haven't happened yet.
Disappointments,
Everyone has disappointments. Everyone knows someone who's died. Everyone, like, there's just being on the earth, you cannot escape hard shit.
No.
And so everybody has protectors. Everybody has things they do to take care of themselves to survive the planet we're on. And if you can just accept that, my whole point is this radical ownership.
Yeah.
Then after, I can't tell you how many times I have to go apologize to my coworkers. I have to apologize to my boss. I have to apologize to Justin. I have to apologize to our employees.
Yeah. And we're teaching emotional health.
Yeah. Because I have crap come up regularly.
Yeah. Being healthy doesn't mean we have it all together. Being healthy means that we have self-awareness. Mm-hmm. We're willing to take ownership for the messiness that's in our lives and going to continue to be in our lives at different levels as we're learning and we're growing and developing. Like, that's what healthiness is to me.
Yeah, we're going to take ownership for our crap.
Yeah.
The other day we got in a fight in front of our employees.
Yeah, we did.
What?
That one was
Me and
intense.
you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we had to go take a timeout.
Yeah. Literal adult child timeout.
Uh-huh. We went and took a timeout.
And they were both like, oh, what's happening here?
100%.
No, Mom and Dad, don't fight.
It terrified them.
Yeah, which we will not hide that stuff in front of the people around us. We will maintain authenticity. Because in my environment I grew up in, we had to be all perfect and we couldn't show the world how messy we were. And for me, even I've decided, I'm like, this is where I'm at. I'm not going to hide this for them. I'm going to let them see the beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did take a time out so that we could be less triggered. We went and regulated. We talked about it. Then we came back and we took ownership.
Yeah.
I owned the things that I had done wrong in the conversation. You owned the things you had done wrong in the conversation. We apologized. They both had emotions. And then we walked through it. Because that is what being a powerful person is. It's I own me.
I think that it's easy for people.
And here's the deal. People can judge me. I'm sorry, this is my last rant about this, but people can judge me if they want for the fact that I'm still messy. Like, everybody can. But I know the truth. Like, I know I make sense. I'm like, oh, for the amount of trauma I've gone in and how dysregulated my nervous system has been, I am a wonder at how often I'm not triggered. And how often I'm regulated and how often I use self-control. And not everybody has an understanding of how sick I've been and how many hurdles my body's gone through and how much trauma. Like, when I know my story, it makes sense that I have emotions that come up sometimes.
Yeah.
So I own it. I'll own it for people, and not everyone will understand me.
People, on that note, we can all play the game of pretend. So, we could have acted like neither one of us, nothing happened, nothing was going on. Everyone can, and that's what happens. Groups of people will politely play the game of pretend like there's not a problem here. Nothing's really happening here. That's delusion. Yeah. And most people are living in denial delusion.
Yeah.
And that's just, that's no way to live life. It's very trapping and it perpetuates more pain. So you might as well stop the theater that everyone's playing. Be like, hey, we're not actors in a theater here. We're human beings. And so it brings a lot of relief to environments. Okay, we're all in agreement that this thing is happening, that there is a problem, and that we are going to face it together. And when shame is not part of the equation, all of a sudden it's so much easier. It doesn't mean it's not difficult, but it's so much easier because you're not fighting that thing inside of like, oh no, they're watching me melt down and make a mess. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll have to clean this up.
Yeah. Also, shared reality is so helpful. So if you're in an, I was thinking about being in a car with two people who were like, there's a lot of tension. And I just definitely called it out. I was like, wow, it feels like there's a lot of tension in here. And they both just owned it. And we're like, yep, that is true. But
thanks, Captain Obvious.
There's something instantly decompressing or regulating or something that takes the steam out. There's a word I'm looking for, but I can't think of it. When reality is just owned, where we all agree on what is happening.
Yeah, I mean, it de-escalates, like when you're talking about intensity, it de-escalates intensity even in our own bodies because we're all on guard because it's like, there's this thing happening and that no one's talking about. And then when you talk about it, it's like, oh, there we go. All right, I guess it's on the table. What are we going to do about it?
Yep.
So going back to the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. So you may have walked away from Thanksgiving going, I'm the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde scenario. And there's going to have to be not only the repair work with other people, but repair work with your own soul that you go through. But then let's talk about the other side of that. So there's people that showed up at...
If you want to learn how to reconcile with yourself to living fully alive.
So there's people who may have showed up in your experience that they were the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And that's part of the process that I want you to begin to think through like, oh, is there a chance that the people who I am most, what would be the word for it, adverse to being around, that it's like, oh, that aunt, she's such a terrible human being. She's always crazy in these ways. Or that nephew always acts like, or my cousin, or this one friend always shows up in that group. And you have these emotions about how they show up. Is there a chance that when they get in certain group dynamics that you're just experiencing Mr. Hyde? And Dr. Jekyll comes out other places that feels really known, feels safe.
Maybe your aunt is a college professor and at her college, she's a rock star and so kind and so happy.
And everyone loves her.
When she's at the table, she goes back to all of her jealous rages with your mom and she's and she's a bitter old woman. But in her own life, she loves it.
Yeah. There's people that actually, you have to understand that there are people that the people that you feel are the worst or the most problematic or most difficult, there are people that know them as being really wonderful.
Yeah.
Even the worst people have groups of friends that are like, I love old Mike. Old Mike's a great guy. And anyone outside of that friend group is like, oh, Mike's a jackass. What are you talking about? But it's because Dr. Jekyll's showing up there. It's because their authentic self feels safe and they have common shared experiences that they've opened up into and stuff like that.
I just like to say that I think every person, if they were operating out of their true Dr. Jekyll self, like their true identity, most people are lovable. I think every human is.
Yeah.
I think the reasons we don't like our family,
the things
or
that we
friends,
don't love that are unlovable are not our authentic self anyways.
No, they're the protectors.
Yeah.
So whatever it is that you do, whether it's that you're I don't know why I was going to say Molly busy. That's not like a Betsy busy.
Betsy busy.
Like whoever you, like maybe you're so busy you never connect to the people at your family.
Maybe you're known as the local Karen.
Maybe so. Regardless, it's often like whatever it is. My brain just stopped entirely.
Did it shut off on you? Whatever
it is that you're known for. I don't know what we were talking about.
Well, anyways, maybe you're known as the local Karen or whatever, or someone else is.
Oh, but your authentic self is often lovable. That is normally your protector. That's normally what you've done to survive, and that's not who you truly are.
Yeah, so the truth of your being or the truth of their being is completely different than the actions that are coming out, right? Again, that doesn't mean that we don't have to set boundaries, that we don't have to have our challenges inside of that. But again, our self-protectors that even amplify the situation even more, because now we're reactive and now it's turning into big escalating wars and all kinds of stuff that melts down into everybody yelling and screaming or going into separate rooms. If I all of a sudden don't feel like I have to be on guard because I can see their humanity, I can see that like, oh no, their authentic self is probably way better than this. We had a listener. Let me give you an example. We had a listener on here when we gave away $1,000 and it ended up giving away like 2,000 because someone decided to match.
Yeah.
Who had an Uncle Rick, and Uncle Rick was like the meanest guy ever, and he was like a veteran, I think, if I remember the story right. Anyways, the whole family was just tired of his garbage, and he was an alcoholic and all kinds of things like that. And she decided just to start loving on Uncle Rick. And recently, Uncle Rick actually passed away. After it was all said and done. But there was something that she got so connected to his humanity and really saw him that even in the end, when she was walking through all of it, and there was some family dynamics trying to process through on the other side of it, like she had such a heart of compassion, and his walls came down and his tenderness came out with her. Because he was like feeling seen, like he was being loved for who he actually was, beyond his actions that had been hurting so many people, because she chose to engage in radical love that began to see Rick's story and get involved in the person behind the story.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting about me is I realized years ago that I wasn't a good judge of character, which is funny. I mean, I am actually a really good judge of character. I have really good discernment. But if somebody were to ask me, like, should I hire this person, or would you want this person on your team, or whatever, if they ask me my opinion about people, I've learned that I can't trust my opinion about people when giving recommendations to others, because oftentimes people feel really safe around me and really loved and accepted.
So you'll get a better version of them.
I get a version of them without protectors. I can't tell you how many people, like, I'm like, they're the sweetest human being, so tender, such a love nugget. And then they go and they work for them and they're like, they're an asshole. And I'm like, oh, I guess I could see that. They do have an edge. It just doesn't come out with me. Like, there is a thing that the safer you feel, oftentimes you sink into more of your authentic self.
Yeah. So I've gotten people to show up really well and really messy at the same time.
Yeah, because also the safest
to be messy, but then they work through this stuff, whatever. But I keep getting really good pictures of who someone really is when they feel really loved and safe in our environment.
Now, I have some friends that I don't feel safe with. Yeah. And so on a regular basis, I'm on guard around them. I'm hyper vigilant around them. I don't feel loved and accepted. And so I also notice my worst self comes out.
Yeah.
Because I am trying to stay self-protected around them. And so there's an awareness of, one, how much time I'm going to spend around people like that, and to not identify myself by those things. So like, I have a friend that I'm really insecure around. I'm like, I'm not actually insecure like that. I need to make sure I don't spend so much time with that person.
Yeah.
Because the atmosphere of judgment around them affects me. And I don't want to start to label myself as an insecure person. Now, I have insecurities. Every human does.
Yeah.
That's different than defining yourself by that attribute.
Yeah.
And so there's an awareness of like, there's things about your family that I don't feel safe with. Yeah. And so there's parts of my personality that comes out to protect myself differently than who I naturally am. And so there's an acceptance of, this is who I am. I know who I am outside of this. There's an awareness of, I don't fully feel safe. That's why I show up a little bit more dissociated, or why I'm on my phone a little bit more. And then there's, how can I figure out like the kindest way to protect myself inside of a situation like that?
I found that I have some extended family, I have some extended family that I don't necessarily always feel safe around. Mm-hmm. And years ago, I remember there was an event that I needed to go to. And I decided before going to the event, I'm going to be 1,000% me. 1,000% me. And I felt so alive. I was so happy. I was so playful. I was annoying the hell out of one of the individuals so bad. I knew it. I could feel it. Like they were radiating hatred for me. And I was like, I don't care. I literally, if I'm going to be here, I am choosing fully into being me. So I'm going to make jokes. I'm going to play with the kids. I'm going to say exactly what I think. And I walked away feeling so liberated from that event, but it's because I totally chose I'm not going to go into any protectors. I'm not going to be an alternative human being. I'm going to fully be me. Love me, hate me, reject me. I don't care. It's going to be worse off if I reject myself inside of this situation by deciding that I'm not enough and that I shut myself down. And so I think that that's one of the things that we can think about even in this holiday season is like, what would it look like if I choose to go into situations that don't always feel fun, but I'm just going to be authentically me. Whatever I normally do, however I normally respond, that's who I'm going to fully be and let them all get a dose of that. Good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So.
Well, one of the things I love most, we did Living Fully Alive in the beginning of the year. It's January through March, almost April. And basically, you don't have to figure out how to change yourself, transform your life, make a New Year's resolution, and then fail it. Yeah. You can join this group. You will instantly have other people. You do the immersion. If you do the immersion program, you get other people who are on the journey with you, keeping you going through the process. It will transform how you feel, how you think, how you process. And it will kickstart 2023 for you. Yeah. Like I don't have the discipline often to stick with a resolution.
No.
This is one of those things, just like you were explaining how you could show up and you decided to show up fully alive. Some people don't know how to do that. Some people don't know how to access that feeling. Living Fully Alive teaches you how to reconcile with yourself, have a healthy relationship with yourself, reconcile with the world around you, learn forgiveness, learn tools on how to process what's happening inside of you, self-awareness, and then what's happening outside of you and in other people. It is, we've done it for several years and we have like an ebb and flow. So it like gives you tons of logic and understanding. And then it helps you tap into feeling and brings out so much that you're feeling and then leaves you feeling really empowered and like you can run after life. And so if you want something to help you feel powerful in life again, find your spark, find that thing that helps you feel, come out of the depression or the anxiety or the fear that you're trapped living in. This is a great program for you. It is 3 months of us holding your hands through the human transformation process.
Yeah, it's awesome. So if you want to partake in that this year, you know what? I said it before. Go to Justin and Abi, that's abi.com. Courses, Living Fully Alive. It starts January 11th is when it starts. Signups are happening right now. And again, use the code Great Friday 2023 if you're listening to this Cyber Monday.
Yeah, and come follow us on Instagram. I answer most of my messages unless they go into that one folder that is like I don't know where. It's so weird.
I'm going to be honest. I hit and miss on what messages I answer.
You're hit and miss. Yeah, but if people wanted to message me about the podcast and like something that stood out to them or something they were feeling about it, like I love reading that kind of stuff. So hit us up. Share it on Instagram.
Rate, review, subscribe, and share this.
Woo!
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we love you all. We're glad you listened. And we're excited for
being
this
friends with us.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out. I love when people come up to me and they're like, I feel like I know you, but you don't know me.
I know.
And then I'm like, tell me about your sex life.
I told you about mine. You tell me about yours. On that note, let's go to the bathroom.
All right, go away. Bye now.
Bye.